I mean, I started off as the birthday clown at the skating rink. I was maybe 12 years old, serving cupcakes, leading the hokey pokey. It's actually not really far off from what I actually do now. I started teaching fitness when I was about 15, and I loved doing it. I didn't even understand I could make a career out of it. It took me a handful of years of teaching fitness, and then I finally figured out, oh, well, you're already doing what you love to do and what you're really good at. How do you turn this from a job into a career or a profession? And those are two very different things. A job is one thing, a profession is something else. I earned my master's degree in exercise and sports sciences, and things really kind of spiraled out in a wonderful way from that point. But yeah, I mean, I was doing the thing I do back then. I didn't know I could do it permanently. And I think that's something that a lot of young people should realize, that work can be fun, and the thing that you're good at and excited about right now you can make a career out of.
Hi, Fitz. Welcome to the Life of a Career podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric.
Yeah, could you give us a quick 90 seconds of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I am noisy, I am bossy, I have been known to be compelling, but I am at the heart of who I am and what I do is I'm a fitness expert. I help people live better and longer by making fitness understandable, attainable, and fun. That's my life's laser focused mission statement, and I believe I will do that until the day that I die. I do it in a variety of ways, namely via mass media and anything that puts me in front of a mass audience. So, when I started off, I worked in the gyms and did personal training and stuff. But what I learned very quickly is my desperate craving is to help an enormous amount of people at a time. And so I do that through TV, radio, books, magazines, podcasts, vlogs, article writing. I do a lot of corporate speaking, keynotes. I teach clinics, I have courses, and I'm an author, and I vomit out words that help people understand how to take care of themselves better. Again, author, I have my third and fourth book coming out soon, and then I am a professional race announcer. And a lot of people don't know what that is, but I man the start and finish line of some of the largest, most iconic running events in the United States. So the Los Angeles Marathon, Big Sur Marathon, Buffalo Marathon, Detroit Free Press, Gasparilla, the DC Superhero Series, and more. And I make happy noise. And as people arrive at the start line and on race morning, I play great music. I get them engaged, informed, and then entertained. And I'm really heavy on the entertainment part because I want everybody to come together, feel like a community, and have a really fun time. Instead of asking people to exercise like I do on my fitness side of thing, on race day, a race director says, here's 30,000 people who think exercising is fun. Make sure they know what to do, know where to go, and they have a good time. And so I'm all about making sure they have a great time so they want to come back. And then when I whip them into a frenzy, I yell go, and everybody takes off. And then I wait at the finish line and I welcome everyone home like a champion. And sure, I give our number one guy and our number one gal their due, but my real priority is making sure our middle of the pack, our back of the pack, those life-changing experiences are meaningful, and even our dead last finisher feels like they won the race. So that's who I am, and that's what I do.
Wow, there's so much to unpack there. I can't wait to get to the day-to-day life, because it sounds like there's all sorts of things happening there. But before we get there, is this what you always wanted to do when you were little?
I started off as the birthday clown at the skating rink. I was maybe 12 years old, serving cupcakes, leading the hokey pokey. It's actually not really far off from what I actually do now. I started teaching fitness when I was about 15, and I loved doing it. I didn't even understand I could make a career out of it. It took me a handful of years of teaching fitness, and then I finally figured out, oh, well, you're already doing what you love to do and what you're really good at. How do you turn this from a job into a career or a profession? And those are two very different things. A job is one thing, a profession is something else. I earned my master's degree in exercise and sports sciences, and things really kind of spiraled out in a wonderful way from that point. But yeah, I mean, I was doing the thing I do back then. I didn't know I could do it permanently. And I think that's something that a lot of young people should realize, that yeah, work can be fun, and the thing that you're good at and excited about right now you can make a career out of.
When you were younger, did you have any discussions about careers with your peers, with, parents or teachers or the community in general?
I don't recall doing so. I'm a raging patriot. I love freedom. I love the United States. It's I was ingrained with the red, white, and blue, and so I wanted to run for office. I really thought I would like the power to do good things, and I saw public servants as as people who could help their communities, their country, and so I actually went. I got my undergrad degree is political science, and I thought I needed that degree, and I thought I needed to go to law school to become a governor, because I guess most of the politicians at that time were lawyers, and nobody corrected me. I mean, I guess I really had little to no support there, because I, I would hate to sit down and read all day, and that's what lawyers do. But I really just thought that was your path, your career path towards public service. What I found now is that I have so much power to do good in the private sector. I would be a fool to leave as CEO of Fitzness, doing all the good I do, to go get muddy in the swamp. But yeah, I didn't have the kind of help that I think we're trying to give others, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. When you were thinking of doing the political route or public service, were you considering any other career path? Like maybe, I don't know, policing or military or maybe even State Department, all
Yet
the myriad of possibilities in public service?
you nailed it. I actually thought about the military. I mean, what do I love more? There's nobody I put on a higher pedestal than our military and our law enforcement. But yeah, I thought about the Marine Corps, and then it dawned on me, hey, dummy, you're a coward. I mean, I'm not a coward, but I likely wouldn't put on armor and go stand in front of guns. I really respect the military. So then I decided, nah, I'll serve in another way. In fact, I really thought it would be great to serve on the President's Council of Physical Fitness and Nutrition, which used to be President's Council of Physical Fitness and Sports or whatever. So they've updated it, but I really don't want to be involved in the muddy thing that looks like our national government right now. So I'm going to put that off. I'm going to put that off a few years, Eric.
Yeah, no, makes sense. And I understand the desire for public service. I served 6 years in the active duty in the Army, and then
Thank
3 years
you.
in the reserves. So definitely understand that pull towards some sort of patriotic duty. So so from there, when you were in college, you said you eventually found your way into the physical fitness
Yeah.
realm, right? And how did that path or happen?
So I had continued teaching from 15 on. I never stopped. When I got to the University of Florida, I was hired to work at the UF gym. That was great. That was so much fun, teaching to, a packed house full of college students. I could play vulgar music, and the rooms would steam up. The windows would fog. It was such a great time. But I took a summer and I worked on a cruise ship over in Europe. I toured Russia and Sweden and Denmark and all of Scandinavia. That was pretty incredible. And then when I came home from those few months on a cruise ship teaching overseas, a man was casting for a TV show. And so I started doing that. And what I found is I was just as comfortable in front of a camera as I was in front of a room full of 50 people. So my skills translated. But even then, I still didn't know, hey, this is going to be your career. What happens is right before I graduated, I took a career planning course. I don't know why I did, but I did. And on the very first day, the man had us make two lists, a top 10 list of things we love to do for passion, for fun, just things that make us happy. Top 10 things we can't stand. And so I made my top 10s, and the top 3 things on my love list were sports and fitness, music, and helping people. And it sounds nerdy, but those were the top 3 things on my love list. Top 2 things on my hate list were sitting down and reading. And what do attorneys do all day? They sit and read. And so I had that aha moment of, oh gosh, that's not going to work. But then I looked at my love list and I thought, well, dummy, you're already doing what you love to do, what you're really good at, and now you just have to figure out how to turn this into a career. You know, and a career to me is the type of thing where you can pay for a mortgage, right? You can take your kids on vacation, maybe they go to Disney World or something. To me, that's the professional status. So it took a lot of creativity. I incorporated, I think I was 21 when I incorporated Fitzness International, and it's been going strong ever since.
Wow, it's been a while. Did you ever think about becoming an actor or actress? I mean, because you said you were going down the television show
That's
path,
so
right?
funny you asked that. So I did do some acting. I actually was a competitive kickboxer. I fought for almost 10 years. And because of that, I started getting invitations to, audition for this role in a movie or a TV show. And I did. I scored some roles, and it was fun. But at that time I was also doing television news, fitness tips. I'd get on TV as Fitz Koehler, and I would, give people news they could use today to live better and longer. And so simultaneously doing the same thing, I really just didn't enjoy acting as much as I enjoyed being on television as Fitz Koehler, helping people. And so I eventually, those continuous offers, I never sought out acting. It was just constantly um, offered to me, and I took some opportunities, because why not? But that wasn't what I was meant to do. So yeah, so fitness,
C-
I'm a
Could
one
we go
trick
back?
pony.
Could we go back to the kickboxing thing because I find that very interesting. When did you start that?
So I was still at UF. I think I was maybe a senior, and we were going to create a course. We had a lot of flexibility. I could teach hip hop, New York hip hop if I wanted to, or whatever. I can make up my own classes. And so I created a course called sports conditioning, and we were going to do the football run and basketball dribbles, and I wanted to add some kicks. And so I called a local karate school, and I had no interest in karate. Trust me, I always thought martial arts were super dorky. It just, whatever, my own little bias. And so I said, hey, I'd like to learn some kicks. I'm a fitness instructor. Can you teach me some that I could teach my students? And the guy said, sure. So I go in and I'm talking with this nerdy karate guy, and he's teaching me a couple kicks, and out of conversation I just randomly said, oh, I've always had an interest in full contact kickboxing. And he said, really? I said, yeah. He goes, well, I happen to have trained a few world champion kickboxers. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah, why don't you come in and try it sometime? And so I started coming in just for fun. And eventually, and I had said at some point, I said, what do I pay you? He said, you can't afford me. He said, fortunately for you, I'm having just as much fun as you are. So you can come in whenever you want. So I continued to come in, and he eventually gave me some gear, and we were sparring, and I would pause the sparring to ask the rules. And he said, Fitz, I'll give you the answer, but if you ever get grabbed in a parking lot, there are no rules. It's not like you're ever going to get in the ring. And I said, oh, you're right. And then when we were done training that day, I said, you know what, Corey, I think I'd like to fight. He said, oh, I knew you would. And so after that, we just steered my training towards competition, and I did very well, and I had a lot of fun, and my specialty was kicking people in the head. I had incredible endurance, and I not only could kick you in the head, but I could trick you into moving your head into my foot, which was bliss to me. So I did that until I got pregnant with my daughter, and then you really can't kickbox pregnant. And then once I was into full blown momming, what I realized, even though I desperately wanted to go back to fighting, is that if you lose a tennis match, you might feel sad, but if you lose in combat sports, you could have long lasting trauma, right?
Mm.
Uh, head trauma and concussions, and there really is, it's a high risk activity. So I couldn't build in the time required to me to do that and be a great mom. So only a little less than 10 years, and it was a blast. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, that's amazing how you found it. It wasn't something you did as a kid. It was something you did much later in I guess your discovery phase of life.
Well, and what I can tell you is the real value there, besides the fact that I had a lot of fun and I was super fit, is I learned so much about business in the ring.
How so?
Well, a couple of things. So I remember at some point, magazines. People were always writing articles on me, right? I was kind of popular, and they were writing articles. And what I found is they always butchered the information. My name is Fitz. It's Fitz. It's not very complicated. Yet half of the reporters would label me Fritz, which was infuriating. I mean, go see your name butchered in a magazine. That's really upsetting. And then they would make up quotes, which was a bad thing. I was an expert in my field, and you were making me sound like an idiot. So I was upset by that, and I really wanted to write the articles, but I was too afraid. I was too afraid to ask. And frustration after frustration every time I went to the bookstore. And so finally, I left a particularly grueling training session. It was me on like 5 different sparring opponents as I was training for a match. They were coming in to help. And so I leave the gym battered, bruised, and I go over to a gas station to get a Diet Coke and a newspaper type thing. And I was thinking, and I picked up another magazine that made me so cranky. And I thought, dang it, they never get it right. I wish I could just write this stupid article myself. And then I thought, you know what, dummy? You stand in a ring in front of thousands of people with someone who wants to knock you clean unconscious, and you're afraid to ask for an opportunity. So I got mad. I went home. I picked up the phone. I called editor of XYZ magazine. I said, hey, Bob, this is Fitz. Oh, hey, Fitz. How you doing? I said, great. I got a question for you. I would like to write an article for your magazine. He said, oh, that would be great. And he said, how much money do you want? And I thought, oh my gosh, not only did he say yes, but he's going to give me money. And for maybe 2 years, I was letting this go by because I was too chicken to ask. And so my rule of thumb from that point on was, unless something causes bleeding or broken bones, I'm going for it. I'm not fearing anything. And so it has made me a far more capable, competent, and aggressive businesswoman because I've removed that fear of no. And I think that's really what holds most people back.
Yeah, that's an amazing lesson to learn. And you're absolutely right. In business, there is a lot of things that is just mental blockers. Yeah. Did you learn anything from just being an athlete too? Because there's so much in the athletic psychology. Was there a component of that might have contributed to business as well?
Absolutely. You got to fail a whole bunch. I didn't show up on day one of kickboxing with any sort of skill at all. And it's interesting to me when I trained other people, I maybe teach them a jab first, and they would say, oh, I'm so bad. I'm so embarrassed. And I would say, well, why in God's earth would it be good? You've never done this before. Why would you be good? You have to commit to something. You have to do it over and over and over repetitiously until you can have any sort of success. So that has definitely carried on as a speaker. When I decided I wanted to go for mass audiences, I meant it. And I started speaking for free to Girl Scout troops, to high school classes, to these teeny tiny little weight loss groups. I practiced my craft over and over and over, and I earned myself on larger and larger stages. And that is exactly like sports. If you're in a sport and you don't succeed, well, you get back to it. You're gritty, and I'm still participating in sports, and they're still teaching me lessons. I do obstacle course races, which are hard in a unique way. And then I ran the Boston Marathon a year or so ago. That was really hard, but it's the accumulation of all I've learned as a kickboxer, as a former cheerleader, a speed skater, as a business owner, as a mom. It all adds up to make me better at what I do in every capacity.
Did just being a kickboxer, I know a lot of combat sports athletes, they use it as a platform to really elevate themselves in some way. It probably doesn't do a lot, but it sounds like this was sort of a foundation for you to sort of branch off of.
You know what? It definitely was. And so I didn't choose kickboxing for my career. I chose it because I liked kicking people in the head. But yeah, it certainly did give me some notoriety. It gave me experience being the girl who was interviewed. Eventually gave me the experience being the girl who was writing the articles. Because I was kind of a hoity-toity person in that world, I made a lot of connections. I learned the art of networking. Now, I certainly used it as something that was interesting about me for a while. but it's not number 10 on my resume anymore because the things I do and the things I focus on have just simply surpassed that. But if somebody ever says, "What's a fun fact about you?" I'm like, "Well, I used to be a full contact kickboxer," and as I like it happened here, they're fascinated by that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of fighters, now when we're watching like the mixed martial arts world, like UFC, a lot of athletes they that are really successful, they talk about that where it's like, I know I can't think of it 100%. This is going to be my career forever. I can't keep my identity there. I have to use my opportunity because there's a limited window here to be a platform for future endeavors. And do you have any advice for athletes that may be in that boat? Because I think, regardless of it's kickboxing, I think that's the same with a lot of different other sports, to be able to use it as a platform and maybe not as a full-time career unless you're like a golfer.
Well, you know what? I mean, the reality is in the corporate world, and when I want to go speak or do spokesperson work for Disney or Tropicana, which I have, my kickboxing has no place, no relevance for them. They can't use my kickboxing. There's nothing I can do with an audience with kickboxing that is going to benefit them. The way I benefit them is the stuff that's in my mind and the way I present it. So yeah, I mean, somebody might be intrigued by it, and perhaps it might say a little something about who I am. But yeah, those skills you have on the soccer pitch aren't going to get you a job or help you negotiate. You have to have actual skills. In fact, when I host interns every semester, and I work very closely with the University of Florida. That's my alma mater from undergraduate and grad school. And so my master's is in the College of my master's in exercise and sports sciences from the College of Health and Human Performance. And so they send me a lot of interns and or candidates. And so I do these interviews, and a lot of Gator athletes, a lot of football and basketball and tennis and lacrosse, you name it. But it's interesting to me. There was one young man, I really wanted to hire him. Everything about him told me he could be great. And I said, "Well, tell me what your skills are." And he said, "Well, I do love sports and I love people." And I said, "Okay, well, what are your skills in business?" "Well, I really love sports and I've made my life out of tennis." What I needed to know was, could he write articles for my website? Could he do graphic design and help me edit videos and manage my social media accounts? And he was stuck on, he loves people and he plays tennis, and that's not really those aren't skills relevant to the business world. If somebody is selling cars or beautiful underwear, your tennis isn't going to get you very far. But the skills you learned as a tennis player, maybe you created a social media account to market you as an athlete, and maybe you learned how to write articles about your sport, or you've been interviewed by the media. Those are professional skills that will go a long way. But you can't be the tennis player or the kickboxer forever and expect to get very far unless you're Conor McGregor, right? There's a few people who can ride off into the sunset on their skills, but most of us cannot.
Mm-hmm. Did someone coach you during this period to know that, hey, you're kickboxing, but do other things, or was that something natural for you because you found that magazine, got frustrated, and then decided to ask?
I was working, right? So most athletes don't get paid for athleticism. In fact, I never took a dollar for fighting, not because I couldn't have, but because I didn't want to put a dollar on this fun thing I was doing. I never wanted my rent to be over my head when I stepped into a ring. I just really wanted to have a good time. And it's the old philosophy of the Olympic Games. It was for the love of sport. And so I purely kickbox because I freaking love to kickbox. I loved fighting more than anything. So yeah, I didn't have any coaching, like take these things and move it over here, but I was still teaching fitness classes while I was competing. I started doing personal training, and boy, I started personal training when I was 16. And I remember back then I charged $15 a class or a session. And then I moved it to 20. And so what I was learning at the time is, okay, I'd get enough clients where I felt comfortable at $30 an hour. And then I would bump it up to 40 for anyone who came in. And then those are things that I was learning along the way, how to grow my business, how to get more customers, or how to get more customers to fewer customers to pay me more, so I would still have some free time as well. So those business skills were constantly being honed and upgraded. And I've reached out to professionals of all sorts. I live in Gainesville, Florida, and I have a friend who's a behemoth in the fitness industry, Joe Cerulli. He used to be president of IRSA, the International Health and Racket Sports Association, and he also owns 3 massive gyms here. Friend who owns the Shishi Spa, friend who was the athletic director of the University of Florida for many years. And so when I had a business question, I would reach out and say, I know I'm small potatoes. You've done this before. What do you think? And thankfully for me, they were always very generous with their time and their knowledge. And, I think more people should use the resources surrounding them. I think we like to help other people. I think most professionals would be flattered and eager to support someone else trying to build a business or a career.
Did you have that opportunity when you were younger too? You said you were 16 and you were raising the prices of your fitness training. Did someone help guide you and tell you, hey, you could probably have raised prices, or was that also something that you had to discover on your own at that point?
I don't remember anyone helping me with that, but I can tell you that I love earning. When I was a very little, maybe 5 years old, my siblings were 8 and 13. My parents would hire us to go into their office to vacuum and dust and do all sorts of things. I love making money. I love earning. It's fun. I don't necessarily like taking it, especially from people I know. That feels a little comfortable, but I love earning. And I had eyes. My eyes were set on doing more. I knew other personal trainers were making more money, so why not me? I just had to earn the right to charge a certain amount. So yeah, I don't think anyone was coaching me up on that. I was just hungry for more.
Okay. Did you have any other mentors? Because now you were talking about all the available mentors that you have now, but
Yeah.
did you have any in the past that might have helped guide you to this place?
So my kickboxing trainer at the time, he definitely instilled some goodness in me. The most important one being always associate up. And so he was told that by his mentor, but I learned quickly to surround yourself with wonderful people better than yourself. If you slum, you're going to be dragged down. So I would always try to surround myself, and I still do, with people I think are better than me. Are they better parents? Are they better, I don't know, public servants or whatever? I just think if you surround yourself with fantastic people, you won't end up in a bad place. So yeah, I don't know if I had many mentors, but I read books. I remember listening to Donald Trump's The Art of the Deal. I might have been 22 or something like that, driving home to see my mom from college, and I was listening to one of our business greats. And politics aside, the guy is a really good business guy, right? There's Harvey Mackay's book, Pushing the Envelope. That's one of my favorite. That taught me how to negotiate. So yeah, I was seeking out business books and learning. I'm a nonfiction girl. Not only am I a nonfiction writer, but I spend my days trying to absorb information. I listen to audiobooks. I listen to podcasts where I can learn. What else do I? Oh, YouTube vignettes. There's some people I go to where, as a self-publisher, there's some people who have some great guidance for me. And I'm always seeking out other people's guidance for the places where I'm weak.
Do you think that's natural, that you just have this internal curiosity to seek out more?
I do. I want more. I'm a hunter, Eric. I want, if I want something, I need it. I have to go get it. And there's a superhero Marvel called Juggernaut. And he's the guy who's like made of steel, and he breaks through brick walls. And that's my business persona. I mean, most people would say I'm Susie Sunshine. I'm delightful. And I truly am a happy girl. But when I want something, I'm going to go get it. And God help you if you get in my way, step aside, friend. I will achieve X, Y, Z. Even if I have to put on that helmet and go through those brick walls. Fortunately for everybody, fortunately for society, the things I want are really good for everybody. So nobody has to fear Fitz and her aggressive hunting skills. But yeah, I just want more. And so I'm constantly figuring out how to get what I want.
Yeah. I guess that's a perfect segue into what is a day-to-day like now as Fitz sort of the hunter, I guess?
Yeah, you know what? I am so pleased with my career. I think to have the dream career, you need five things. You need to work doing what you want, where you want, with whom you want, for the amount you want. And I blew it. There's a fifth one in there, but yeah, where, why. Anyways, I do all the things I want to do. I get paid very well for the things that I do, and my days are, if I'm at home, I wake up without an alarm clock, which is great. Take my dogs to the dog park. And well, I wake up, I get on my computer, I do about an hour worth of work. Then I take my dogs to the dog park. We get outside, we exercise. It's wonderful. I come home. I've been working. I'm an author, so I work on those books. It's not only writing, but it's editing. It's managing editors and contractors. I have my graphic designer now doing wonderful things, but we're constantly back and forth. I'm marketing my business. And yeah, it's a constant, if you are a business owner or an entrepreneur, you know that your business never turns off. It never turns off. So I'm constantly available to it, yet demanding my own free time, which is the dog walking and so forth. A lot of podcast interviews, media. I'm a media girl, so this is my greatest way to reach other people, right? And then when I travel for race announcing or keynote speaking or spokesperson work, then things change. I normally fly out 6 a.m. I think it's important to fly out first flight of the day, so you're not at the mercy of all the other obstacles that have happened in the air. If my plane is there at 5, I know it's going to go off at 6, and I get where I'm going, and I get to work. Race announcing keeps me very busy. It's not just me at one start line. Quite often it's a VIP party on Friday night, and then on Saturday morning, it's the kids races and a 5K and a 10K. And then I teach clinics at the expo, and maybe I'll do a keynote at the pasta party. And then Sunday morning is half marathon, full marathon day, which will keep me hopping for about 10 hours. And I try not to fly home after a marathon. It's a grueling experience. So the idea of packing up at 4 a.m., having my bags at concierge, and then coming in at 3 p.m., gathering in and flying home just seems like a bad idea. So then I come home, and yeah, I'm always networking. And when I'm at the races, I'm full throttle on my performance, and then full throttle on serving absolutely everybody I can. I walk around, I get to know everybody. That's where the good stuff is when people show up in an expo to pick up their bib, and I start meeting people, I'll find out, okay, well, this woman is running because all 3 of her children burned down in a house fire or died. And so that's a woman, that's a special story of the weekend. That's someone you want to cater to, pamper, love on, make sure she feels special, make sure her kids are acknowledged, make sure people know she's there, and we can all wrap her up in love. Or, maybe someone who just, I don't know, got their first job. If I'm on the ground, I get to hear all the special stories, and then that makes the thing that I do, my words, far more interesting to the other runners and the spectators. Yeah, so that's what I do. Am I missing anything, Eric?
No, well, I don't know everything that you do. I'm sure there's a lot. I do have a question about how, because of all the opportunities that you have, they're sort of disparate in a way, but connected.
Yeah.
How were you able to network to get these roles, or were you cold calling, or how do you maintain relationships? Could you kind of walk us through like what networking means to you?
Networking. So it definitely means get up and get out. You cannot network sitting at home. I mean, sure, you can connect with people on LinkedIn, but it's not the same. Showing up at your local Chamber of Commerce meeting. For me, it's showing up at the annual running conference, or, with my new books, at a cancer organization, sticking out my hand. Hi, I'm Fitz Koehler. Get to know people. That's really how you charm people and win them over, is in person. This stay-at-home hideout thing is not going to serve the majority of professionals. So get out there, introduce yourself, bring business cards, ask for business cards. If you meet somebody that seems relevant to your career or someone you'd like to work with, hey, put out not only an email, get a handwritten letter. Hey, Bob, it was so nice to meet you. I would really love the opportunity to work with you or for you one day. That would be my advice to someone looking for work or looking for a better type of work. I do network with fellow race directors. I never sell too hard. I don't feel like that's a good match for me. Some people are super salesy and that works for them. For me, I have this resource called fitzness.com where people get, we connect, they get interested in what I do. And say, oh, check out fitzness.com. Or maybe you want to talk to the race director of the Los Angeles Marathon over there. He could tell you a little bit about me. So I let my work speak for myself. But yeah, I do connect in person. I think that's the most effective. And then I reach out on LinkedIn. Like right now, with these books coming out, it makes sense for more people to see my content, right? So if they see it, like everybody cares about a cancer patient. If I ask everybody, they'll say, yeah, my neighbor has brain cancer, or my sister has breast cancer. So everybody's got someone. So for sheer marketing of the books, the more people I'm connected to on LinkedIn, the more people are going to possibly invest in a book for their loved ones or for themselves. And then also, that's where the other opportunities stem from. It's interesting to me how someone will reach out and say, hey, I've been watching you work, and we need a speaker for our annual builders conference. Can you come speak? You're delightful. You're high energy. I like your message. Okay. So, I definitely network in person, but then I use social media for content as well.
Mm. Are there any tips and tricks when you first meet someone to sort of dazzle them in a way? I think your personality is probably naturally inclined to make an impression, and a good one right away. But is it because it's a tactic that you have, or is it just natural personality?
So what's very fortunate for me, and not everybody has this, is I am a natural host. I care so much that other people might be uncomfortable or feel awkward. I will naturally go up and introduce myself just so somebody's not standing alone. Boy, that's been a great way where I've met so many people that were kind of holding up the wall. The most powerful guy in the room is holding up the wall because he's an introvert. And so, yeah, I can't stand anyone feeling lonely or uncomfortable. So I'm usually the first one to introduce myself. And if it's someone I want to network with, I will definitely walk up and say, hi, I'm Fitz Koehler. Nice to meet you. I don't expect that anybody knows who I am, even if it's in an industry where they likely might know who I am. Or if I get off a stage, I still put out my hand and introduce myself. And I think that's a really important skill. And that's one of those things where people can overcome fear, right? That's not going to cause bruising or bleeding or broken bones. If you go introduce yourself, the other person may be really appreciative of it. And usually what I do is I turn my attention to them and say, tell me about you. What do you do? I don't think I ever go up and say, hey, I just want to let you know that I'm a really great race announcer and I'm a wonderful speaker. I'd say, hi, Bob, tell me about you. What are you doing here? What brings you out? And then eventually they might ask what I do, and I'm happy to share. I've got that 30-second speech whittled down. You should know who you are and what you do. You shouldn't have to and figure it out on the spot. You should know exactly what you bring to the table and be able to share that in an instant.
Yeah, that's really good advice. What about like follow through? You have your social media that maintains sort of that constant touch point to a certain degree, but do you do any more purposeful and intentional touch points on a routine basis, or just, I don't know, what's the cadence on that, if there is any?
I do. So if there's somebody maybe that I'd like to hire me, if we've discussed they have a conference coming up and they have a keynote spot they're interested in, I might follow up and say, hey, Bob, it's always Bob. I'm always working with Bob, by the way. Hey, Bob, have you made a decision for the keynote speaker? I'm still available that weekend. So that would be an intentional. A lot of my intentional reaching out right now is to the people I serve. And so I have thousands of people that I coach on exercising often, eating wisely. I have a popular Facebook group. It's called the Hottie Body Fitness Challenge. And so those people who need a little boost, I reach out to regularly. I am the queen of calling people on video calling. So, with the cancer community, and I had cancer 2019, 2020. We can discuss that if you like. That's where my books are focused on right now. But there's so many people that reach out and say, Fitz, I just got diagnosed with colon cancer. I need your book ASAP, or my mom has. Can I get your book? And so when someone reaches out and say, I was just diagnosed with XYZ cancer, I go, boop, I hit that little video button and I say hello. And then, I do my best to encourage them. I'm not an oncologist. I don't have all those answers, but I do have some bits of wisdom that might work for them. And I am not trying to sell books. I'm actually trying to take care of people that I really care about that are in a terrible situation. And so yeah, I reach out a lot. Usually the people I'm reaching out to are people that I serve. And I do believe, it probably is going to pay itself back to me in some form or the other, if nothing else, with great friendships. But yeah, I take care of the people who look to me for guidance and support.
Yeah, that's really great advice, to just help people without actually needing something in return.
Yeah.
I really like that advice.
Yeah.
I guess if you're okay with talking a little bit about the cancer portion, how did that affect your career? What was your mindset? I don't even know what questions really to ask about that.
You know what? That was the perfect questions. So very quickly, I went in for a clean mammogram in late December 2018. Less than 6 or 7 weeks later, I found a cancerous lump. I just found it getting out of the shower. And within a week, I found out that lump was cancer and it already had spread to my lymph nodes. So I had an aggressive form of breast cancer that was definitely trying to take me out. And it was scary. I thought I was going to die for sure. My oncologist convinced me that it wasn't. He was like, you just have to endure this process, but you're going to be okay. So I made a couple of great decisions at the start that really worked well for me. There was a few. Number one, I chose perspective. I decided I'm not a kid with cancer. It's not my kid with cancer. I should be grateful for those things. Somebody always has it worse. So I'm going to put on my big girl panties. I'm just going to do this thing, whatever needs to be done. Number two, I chose to pursue my passions. Now, I had no idea what I was in for, and I was in for a bit of a nightmare. I had 15 months of chemo, which wreaked havoc on me. I was the person who I lost all the weight. I was skeletal. I was weak. I was sick, violently ill all the time. I was bald. Every part of me went wrong. But not knowing that in advance, I committed that I wasn't going to miss any special occasions with my kids. If they had a show, a ceremony, a sporting event, I was going to be there come hell or high water. And then the other thing I committed to was my career. I have earned my rightful spot on these stages, these coveted stages many people would kill to be on. I earned that. I earned my time with those wonderful people I'm practically obsessed with. And I knew that if I missed an event and stayed home, all I would do was cry all weekend. So I wasn't going to miss any of that. Again, I didn't know what I was in for, but I wasn't missing. And then third, I chose to stay positive. I was like, yeah, I'm unlikely to cry. And I did. I cried a lot. But I also found reasons to smile and laugh. And, I would get my crying over with in my Jeep or in my bathroom. And I dry my tears and I get on with it. So those were really important decisions. Now, the magic of having a career that you love is the being compelled to do it, right? So if I was on an assembly line putting together widgets, I don't know if I would have wanted to show up at work. But I love what I do so much that I was willing to do it while bald and sick and yucky, because I chose wisely. Choose a career that you would do while you might be dying. Choose that career. Choose your family. Choose the people you want to be with. Surround yourself with people so good that you will move heaven and earth and show up for it, even if you're physically exploding at the moment. So those are big lessons learned. But the beauty of these decisions I made was that, it took a lot of effort to get me on the plane and get through the sky and get from Florida to California. It wasn't easy. I would show up at my hotel. I would sleep on the bathroom floor because I was so sick, like real chemo sick. 4:30 in the morning, my alarm would go off and I would drag myself up and I would put on my clothes and try to put on makeup and try to, make the best of my bald head situation. But when I stepped on those stages surrounded by those thousands of people, everything that was wrong with me disappeared. Everything disappeared. If I were with the people that I cared about doing the thing that I loved, cancer wasn't bothering me at that point. My stomach didn't hurt. I wasn't tired. Nothing was wrong. as long as I was focused on taking care of the thousands of wonderful people surrounding me. And so, who gets to do that? I think people who love their career, right? People who love their people can be removed in the best way possible by the things that they love. And so choose your career wisely, and keep working to a place where it will be healing. My efforts, all of those big efforts to get her bounce around the country doing this cancer and a race announcing thing, it was so healing. And if I hadn't have done that, all I would have been was sick. All I would have been was sick. I just would have been a sick person. So I'm very proud of the decisions I made, of the way I handled it. It was not easy. I didn't look great all the time. I didn't feel great all the time, but very proud by the decisions I make. And I hope others will make similar decisions when faced with hardship.
Yeah, that's such an amazing mentality and of courage, really, in the face of death. Like earlier on, you said that, oh, I couldn't be the person wearing body armor being in the military. I would say I would disagree with you there, because just off that story, you would have done better than most that are in. So
Yeah,
just
you know
based
what,
off that.
and as you say that, the reality is, if freedom were in harm's way, I'd suit up, right? I'd suit up. But I'm grateful I made this career choice, and boy, do I love on my military and first responders at a storyline.
Yeah, I think that you could easily have done it without
Thank you.
any issues. Um, yeah, and then from there, I guess you picked it back up, or you continued, and then and you're still doing what you're doing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is, if I would have said, you know what, guys, I'm sick, I'm going to take a year and a half off, and nobody would have blamed me, I would have blamed me. Fitness would be dead. If I had given up, if I had taken the time off, my brand, my business would have fizzled out hardcore. They would have found replacements for me, and I'm not convinced I would have gotten those jobs back. But instead, because I persevered, because I made these really great decisions, my business has tripled since my diagnosis. And I feel so good about that. And again, these books are now new, wonderful things. I've made lemonade. What are the odds a highly qualified, experienced fitness expert has to do cancer? When I came out of it, what I realized when I hit rock bottom, when I was in the so weak and all the things, is I thought, if I didn't have all of this fitness expert savvy in my head, I would be defeated. Like this would feel impossible, and I might give up. And it pains me for people who are in that situation, who their bodies have been ravaged and their minds have been ravaged by such a mean disease and such mean treatment. But instead, I instantly knew how to strategically design my healthy cancer comeback. I knew exactly what I was going to do and exactly where I was going to go. And just over a year after finishing chemo, I ran the Boston Marathon. So now these books are designed to help people slow the decline, right? You can do stuff during your treatment to slow your decline. Here, let's do that. But then also, let's rebuild your body. Let's build your strength, your stamina, your flexibility, your mobility. Let's put some vibrancy back in your life, some spring in your step, and let's take you not only past health and fitness, but let's set you off on a path towards athletic adventure. I wouldn't go back and redo cancer. I'm not, some people are like, it happens for a reason. I'm not that girl, but it happened. And boy, am I going to make the best of a bad situation. I'm really excited about this stuff.
Yeah. Do you think that your sports psychology and just your background might have helped with the mindset?
I think it all helps. Yeah. Yeah. And again, I could go back to kickboxing. It really puts things in perspective. So my best kind of example of this is before I started treatment. Yeah, they had already done some pokes. I'm a needle phobe, so I'm that wimpy girl. Imagine taking someone who's afraid of one needle and say, okay, you're going to have about 500 needles over the next year and a half. That wasn't a good time, but they had to do an MRI before they started chemo. And MRIs inherently for anyone with claustrophobia, which I have, is they're uncomfortable. They're tiny little tubes, and they put you in on your back, and your face is close to the top. And then Thor bangs a hammer on the side of the machine. Boom, boom. It's really stressful. So I went into this MRI already not happy. They didn't give me any anxiety medicine. I just went in there and I thought, okay, I'm just going to talk myself through it. But what happens is, instead of getting on my back, they said, okay, get up and lie down, face down on the table. And I'm like, okay, I just did it. And then what she proceeded to do is she clamped each of my breasts in by these plates. She pinned me down to the table by my chest. And there was a crummy little massage face cradle, you know, the kind, but it was like a super cheap version of that. And so I'm lying there, and she didn't even tell me to put my hair up. I had long hair, and it was in my face. And then she shoves me back into the tube, and I lose it. I'm fairly type A. I'm very in control of me. She shoved me in that machine. There was screaming and flailing and crying and get me out. And I was so stressed. You know, cancer, it's the stress like no other. So she pulls me out, and then she starts yelling at me. She's like, you need to get in there or you're not going to be able to start chemo, and I'm staying late for you and whatever. It's like, I just need to get out. I need to breathe. So I got out. She let me adjust. I put my hair up, and I took off the socks, and, you know, I did whatever. It cracked my back. And then I lied down, which I did not want to do. I got back in the position. She clamped me back in with these plates. Again, it's like, guys, imagine being pinned down by a junk in your nose. It's not a good feeling. So she pushes me back into the machine, and I didn't know that I had to do it. I had to figure it out, or I wasn't going to be able to start the cancer killing. And so the whole time in there, I was talking to myself, and I kept saying, Fitz, you were a competitive kickboxer. You can do hard things. You've raised good children. You've built an international business. You can do hard things. You can do this. And in my mind, I just kept going over and over, you know, these, not just accomplishments. I wasn't patting myself on the back. I was trying to convince myself that, you know, again, standing in that ring was something most people wouldn't do. And I did it. It was like a psychotic person, just kept saying it. And eventually I'd said it enough that the MRI was over, and I did it. And that self-talk that you can do hard things, I had to do it every single day. Every time they poked me with a needle, every time I went in for a scan, every time I showed up for chemo or radiation or surgery, I was constantly in my own head reminding myself of what I'm capable of. And eventually I'd done it enough that I was done. You know, I got to ring the bell and do the dance and all the stuff, and I was done with cancer. But now my new mantra is, it's not cancer, you know, like, what in God's earth would be upsetting or scary to me now that I've done all that? The only thing I can really imagine would be some harm done to my kids. And I'm hoping that will never be the case. So I'm pretty sturdy now. The world has messed with me. I feel like it messes with everybody. Nobody gets out unscathed. And how you respond to the nightmare is really the difference between your success and your failure.
Yeah, that's such an amazing story. Do you have any recommendations for anyone who might be interested in pursuing your career path, or maybe just like career in general? Because you have this exercise of almost kind of going through hardship as a pattern, right? Kickboxing, and then thinking to yourself like, well, as long as this doesn't make me bleed, I'm okay. I could do that. And it's the consistency of doing hard things that might have developed that mental strength for you to endure, you know, cancer. Do you have any advice about, you know, I don't know, getting into fitness as a career, or maybe the other side, the psychology behind it?
So there's a couple of things. Not everybody wants all this, right? I have one of my most wonderful interns, and he was so great working for me. But when he graduated, he said, I don't want to be in charge of anything. I just want to have a job that pays my bills, something where I can do the tasks and do them well and go home and, you know, play with my dogs. And I love that. I get that. So not all of us are built the same. Not all of us are creators or hunters. But if you do want a career that you love as much as I love mine, then you should figure out what you're passionate about. Make those two top 10 lists. Avoid the stuff on the hate list. lean towards the stuff on the great list. Now, note, you may have to do some sitting and reading, even if you love sports and fitness. I've filed for 5 different trademarks. I did not enjoy that, but it was a means to an end, right? So we have to include some of the dislikes in order to do the things that we love. But when you figure out what you love, all right, we'll get some practice, and then get your education, whether it's trade school or certification or a fancy diploma. Build up your background so you know the most, so you do it the best. You have the most experience. Do it for free until you do it for some, and then, increase your paycheck as you've earned the right to. Show up early, stay late, always be kind. Nobody wants to work with a jerk. You could be the most beautiful, the most talented, the best, but if you're mean, people will find a way to get rid of you. So yeah, be respectful of yourself and of others. High integrity goes a long way. Now, it's funny you ask about fitness. I don't necessarily think fitness is a great career. That I have done it in a way where I can pay all the bills and take my kids on vacation and so forth, but I do it in a unique way. If you're just going to teach fitness at a gym or do personal training, you're never going to have a sick day. No one's ever going to pay you if you don't show up. Nobody's going to give you a vacation day. There are no benefits. Fitness for many, I would say for most, is a part-time job. Maybe you're a lawyer by day and you teach some classes at night, or your spouse is a breadwinner and you want to be able to make some extra income. But fitness in general isn't a wonderful profession for most. Physical therapy is a fantastic adjacent profession. Physical therapy is kind of a medically superior version of a personal trainer. They have a career with an annual salary, benefits, and I do think that's probably what most professionals would be after. But whatever you want to do, create your own career. Don't follow anybody else's rules. I have not followed anyone else's path in fitness. I've created my own based on my interests and my skill set, and it works for me. So figure out what works for you and do that.
Yeah, I really appreciate the realistic advice of, hey, fitness might not be a great career. I think you're the second person that so far have said their own careers like in a realistic manner. Yesterday, I talked to a financial advisor, and the first time I had heard, he was like, "Oh, well, don't do it right away." He's like, "Do it when you're older." He's like, "Don't do it when you're 20." He's like, who's going to trust you with their money at 20? He said, "You might as well have an initial career first and then transition later." And I was like, Absolutely. "Oh, that's great advice." So I really do appreciate the fitness.
Well, what's so interesting? It's like everybody wants to write a book. Oh, yeah, I'm going to write a book. Well, what are you going to write a book about? And, I'm not saying you shouldn't write a book, but some people are like, well, my grandfather. Okay, well, if you're going to write the book about your grandfather, know that the only people that are going to read the book about your grandfather are the other people in your family who loved your grandfather, right? You'll be one of the 80% of self-published of authors who sell 5 books or less. Mm-hmm. If you're going to write the book, have great experience, great stories, have a platform. There's a lot of effort that goes into something that's going to sell a whole bunch of copies. And then if you do it at a high level. Don't ask your best friend to edit it unless she's a professional editor. You have to treat your profession in a professional way. Same thing goes for speaking. They're like, I want to be a speaker. Okay, well, what are you going to talk about? What is your value to the audience? I don't just assume every audience needs to hear from me. When people say, Fitz, we would like you to do the keynote for blah, blah, blah. All right, well, tell me about your audience. What are we what's the message they need to hear? And the other thing is, not only do you need to have a message appropriate for a specific audience, you need to have the skills of speaking. If you're going to get on stage and go and people don't want to hear you say 50 times during a presentation, or worse. You sound like you're on ABC's The Bachelor. So you have to practice these skills. Being an author and being a speaker sure sound like a lot of fun, but you really need to put in work if you want to do either well.
Yeah, no, you've provided so much great insight and information about just careers in general and life. Is there anything else that you'd like to impart upon the audience? Because I've taken a lot of your time and I want to be respectful of it. So is there any last bits of advice that you might not have touched on that you would like to sort of impart?
Um, Gosh, have high standards for yourself. And I think when it comes down to who I am, the reality is if you take care of you, you will do better overall. You will do better in your social world, in your professional world. If you do not take care of your health, your physical or mental health, both count, people won't take you seriously. If you would like to apply for a great job, know that first impressions are solidified in 7 seconds or less. So when you walk into a room, do people look at you and say, wow, that person's a go-getter, lots of energy, lots of confidence. That person is going to save me money and make my life easier. Or do you come in looking kind of slovenly and fatigued because you don't exercise and you don't eat right? Maybe they look at you and they think, can this person keep up? And so does looking hot in a bathing suit have anything to do with your career? No, it has nothing to do with my career. But being fit and standing up straight and having energy and confidence has something to do with almost all careers. So you should focus on your health. Forget about the fact that you will live better and you will live longer and your insides will be good and you will be less likely to be predisposed to all of these diseases and so forth. But yeah, if even if you're just laser focused on your career, get out and exercise. Strength, cardio, flexibility, balance, it matters to 100% of the population. If you are not working on getting stronger, you are getting weaker. So all those 4 pillars of fitness matter. Work on your mental health, because being a grouchy guy is not going to win you any jobs, any gigs, any paychecks. So your personal well-being is directly relatable to your professional success. Now, Fitzness.com, I love talking about business. This is actually a real treat for me, Eric. I love, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about it all. But Fitzness.com is jam-packed with free resources for people who say, okay, you know what, you've convinced me, Fitz. I would like to exercise in a more efficient way, or I would like to look towards maybe losing weight or gaining weight. Go to Fitzness.com. There's trillions of free resources. Right on the cover is the exact formula for weight loss. It's no diets, pills, powder, shakes, supplements, no snake oil at all. It's just you learning how to eat the right amount of the right food for the size you want to be. There's tons of free workout videos and articles and resources. There's also some paid things. I have my new 5+ hour course, Fixing Your Life with Fitzness. And not only do we get into the nuts and bolts of health, really deep into fitness and how your body works and how you should train yourself, but also how this correlates to your professional and personal success. And then, of course, these books. What I'm asking is, if you care about a cancer patient, visit Fitzness.com, because my 2 newest books, Your Healthy Cancer Comeback, Sick to Strong, and the companion journal, I'm hoping to get into the hands of every cancer patient and survivor on earth, Eric. It's the thought of being where I was without knowing how to crawl my way out just is too sad to even think about. So I don't want anyone to ever be lost when they hit rock bottom. I want them all to be able to climb out and go live this beautiful life well, right? Cancer can put a ding, but let's not let it get the best of us.
Well, I think with that, there's no way I can close it better. So thank you so much for joining us, Fitz, on the Life of a Career podcast. We really appreciate everything that you just, detailed with us. It was great.
Thank you, Eric.
Hey, thanks for joining us at Mentor Access. If you like what you just watched, please click like and subscribe, and also hit that bell so that you get notified when we have new videos come out. Thank you for supporting our mission.